Week 16, NFL Power Rankings. How you doing? There was so much football this week. The Thursday night game, which fuck that because, Amazon Prime and all, but all day Saturday, all day Sunday, Monday night. This is the best time of the, oh my God, I can't even speak. But now it's time for the rankings. And I say, let's get into it. Number 32, Denver Broncos. Guess who came back to the field? Russell Wilson. Guess who still looks like asshole? Russell Wilson. The Broncos' first two offensive drives of the game both ended in interceptions. One worse than the other. The most entertaining part of this Broncos offense this weekend was on the sideline when backup quarterback Brett Rippon got into it with the offensive lineman. Now, I don't know what happened, but it came right on the heels of back-to-back sacks on that previous drive. So maybe Rippon went over and was like, hey guys, you think maybe you can protect our quarterback? I don't want to go back in there. That's probably exactly what was said. Look, as bad as this season's been for the Broncos, this has to be the low point. Christmas Day, national TV. I know the NFL received a lot of criticism for these games on Christmas Day, but you got to look at it. Now, I know that the NFL received a lot of criticism for some of these games on Christmas Day, but you got to look at it like this. The Rams are the defending Super Bowl champs. The Broncos had just gotten Russell Wilson, so when they were making the schedule early in the year, this looked like it might have been a premier game. But 51-14, oh my God, Broncos. Oh, I feel bad for Broncos fans. The good news about this game is it got their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, fired, dismissed, relieved of his duties. Although this should have happened about 15 weeks ago, it still ended in a good positive result for the Broncos. Now to find a new coach. I hear Sean Payton is building himself a staff. I don't know. Number 31, Chicago Bears. On the final play of the third quarter, Justin Fields set back and threw a gorgeous, absolutely beautiful 44-yard pass to one of his receivers, whose name I cannot remember because he's irrelevant. It was nice. But aside from that play, this offense didn't do much on Saturday against the Bills. Sitting at 3-11, the Bears didn't really have much to play for in this game. In all honesty, it probably is better off that they lost, especially after you saw that the Texans lost. So now the Bears are only a half a game behind them as far as the number one pick in the draft goes. The Bears came into this game with the number one rushing attack in football. They amassed 80 total yards against the Buffalo Bills. More importantly, not that it matters, they weren't doing shit, but Justin Fields is shut down for the rest of the year. We'll have to wait till next year to see him again. Number 30, Houston Texans. And we got another really close game late in the game for the Houston Texans. That's 3 weeks in a row. Failure to close out games against the Cowboys and Chiefs the previous 2 weeks. That would lead you to believe that the Texans were going to find a way to piss away this game. However, the Titans are not nearly as good as the Cowboys or the Chiefs. And I do mean not nearly. I mean, after taking a late lead, the Texans were able to get a takeaway from the Titans' putrid offense. Are they fitting to win a close game? Are they about to seal a game with this takeover? Nope. They couldn't move the ball. They had to punt it right back to the Titans. And with the Titans having the ball for one final chance, Malik Willis went back, threw up a Hail Mary, picked off by the Texans. Texans get their second win of the year, well-deserved, as they snap a 9-game losing streak, only half a game up on the Bears for that number one pick overall. Number 29, Arizona Cardinals. Trace McSorley gets his first ever start in the NFL. And who does he match up against? The greatest of all time, the one and only Tom Brady. And you know what? On Christmas night, the Cardinals were set up to win this game. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Bucs. But then the mistakes came and bit them right in the culo. That means ass for those of you that don't know. Right in the butt, right in the tuchus. So the Bucs scored a late touchdown to cut it to a 3-point lead. The Cardinals just needed to run the ball, run the clock out. McSorley takes the snap and fucking fires a missile. Pitches the ball to his backup running back, which hits him right in the fucking chest and bounced 40 feet in the fucking air because he threw it so hard. Fumble, recovered by the Bucs. You can't even write this shit. So now instead of them running the clock out to win the game, the Cardinals now come back on defense and have to stop Tom Brady from getting into field goal range. You're literally tasked with stopping Tom Brady from doing Tom Brady shit. It's not difficult to know that the Bucs did kick a field goal, took the game to overtime. Cardinals lose in overtime. Who gives a shit? This team has been done for weeks now. offseason, here we come. Number 28, Indianapolis Colts. All right, they tried with Matt Ryan. They even gave Sam Ehlinger a shot for a few weeks. Let's fuck around and see what Nick Foles can do. Yeah, that first quarter came out. Nick Foles throwing interceptions, just dimes to the other team. And every time in this game when the Colts offense looked like it was starting to get in a rhythm, starting to roll a little bit, Foles would get sacked. Foles will throw another interception. This ain't the Nick Foles that your daddy told you about. Once again, the Colts defense played well enough to get the dub. But being on the field for so long and so many plays eventually broke them. The Colts season has long been over, but now it's official. They're going to need a head coach, and there's a lot of rumors out there about Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan and coming to Indy. Number 27, Las Vegas Raiders. All right, so the Raiders had a 4-point lead late in the game on Saturday night in Pittsburgh. And I don't even think that Raiders fans thought that they were going to hold that lead. I mean, they've been offering up fourth quarter leads to their opponents all season long. It's what the fuck they do. There are a lot of issues with this team. The defense seems to fall apart at the worst times, almost like it's scripted. Josh McDaniels is an absolutely terrible coach. He needs to go back to being an offensive coordinator where he's actually okay. And after watching Josh Jacobs' post-game interview, it is fucking clear that that dude is gone. He's got 2 more games to be played with the Raiders, and that's fucking it. It seems like all year long in post-game interviews, it seems like the Raider players just aren't happy with where this team is going. And I honestly, it's just my opinion, but I honestly think that has a lot to do with McDaniels. But I do have a bold prediction when it comes to this team. All season long, McDaniels is using Derek Carr as a patsy, just setting him up. The Raiders are definitely going to miss the playoffs, way short of the expectations that were set for them once they signed Devontae Adams. And McDaniels is going to end up being the coach there again next year. And you know what's going to happen? Mark my words. Remember where you heard it. McDaniels is going to push for Carr to get the ejector seat, and in comes Tom fucking Brady. Look for him and McDaniels to be reignited in Vegas next year. Number 26, Los Angeles Rams. Christmas Day, against a solid Broncos defense, Baker Mayfield and the Rams came out and dropped a 51 spot. Most NFL fans were really pissed off that this is the game that they had to watch on Christmas Day. But the Rams made it exciting. They put on a fucking show. 51 points. Come on. I'll be honest with you. I am not going to lie to you. I watched about 70% of this game on Nickelodeon. Listening to Patrick Starr's commentary was just great. Watching the slime. Oh, Jesus. If you've never watched a slime game, it's actually kind of fun. Now, I would never watch an important game that way, but this was the Rams and the Broncos. A combined 8 wins all season long. But with the whole nation watching, Baker Mayfield showed why he feels he should still be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I can see him going to the Jets. That's my bold prediction. Number 25, Cleveland Browns. Yo, because this game was so cold, I watched a good portion of it. I like watching shit like that. And I'm here to tell you that Deshaun Watson, once again, looked sharp. But if you look at the box score or the game recap, it doesn't defend that statement. His numbers, his stats, his completion percentage didn't look all that good. But I watched this game, and I'm telling you, he was making sharp passes, and his receivers were just dropping the fucking ball. This was the 3rd coldest game in Cleveland Browns history. And in this game, head coach Kevin Stefanski made some really questionable play calls. Dude, it's freezing, and there was a lot of wind. You have a run game which consists of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And you decided that throwing the ball all over the field was the path you wanted to take. That was your journey. Defensively, the Browns dropped the ball as well. They were gifted a 10-0 lead. Why did my voice just crack? Ultimately, they lost the lead, the 10-0 lead, and lost the game 17-10 on 17 unanswered points. Not only did this game eliminate the Browns from playoff contention, but it also locked up a guaranteed losing season. Number 24, Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder. He looked a lot better in his second start. That's not saying much because his first start last week was just pitiful. The thing to watch here for Falcons fans is Ridder built a chemistry and linked up with Drake London quite often. Now, if he comes back as the starter, because I hear rumors that they're going to bring in a quarterback for some competition, but if he comes back and has that chemistry with Drake London, yeah, that's something to move forward with. So on Saturday against the Ravens, some really bad play calling and awful time management by the head coach ruined their chances to sneak out a win. A win was very much needed here because the NFC South is just so terrible. Had the Falcons won this game, they'd still only be one game out of a division title. But as it were, they lose and eliminate themselves from the playoff contention. Number 23, Tennessee Titans. 5 weeks ago, this team was 7-4. 5 weeks ago and beyond, I was the only person talking about how this team is trash. Oh, John, you're just a hater. You're still pissed off from the Music City Miracle. Maybe, but I was right nonetheless. This past weekend, the Titans hosted the Texans, a team that Derrick Henry historically destroys. So it was expected that Derrick Henry would take over this game, especially with Ryan Tannehill out with an injury. Now, Henry tried his best. He even rushed for over 100 yards, which was more than the passing yards that Malik Willis put up. It's really difficult to think that a team would be better with Ryan Tannehill, unless you're the Jets. But he does elevate this team from trash to mediocre. Malik Willis just drops them straight to terrible. With this loss to the Texans, the Titans move out of first place in the division, and in my opinion, will not make the playoffs. Number 22, Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks' hope of making the playoffs keeps sliding downhill week after week after week. And this weekend in Kansas City, didn't change. Aside from Kenneth Walker, the Seahawks offense just looked PFTTTT, in case you want that spelt. They converted only 2 of the 14 third down plays that they had. And you know what? They were playing against a Chiefs defense that really isn't that good. The final score of this game was 24-10. The Seahawks lost. But if you watched any of this game, and I told you that the final score was 54-10, you wouldn't have been surprised. The Seahawks now need a miracle to sneak into the playoffs. They need losses from the Lions, Washington, the Giants. It's not looking good. Number 21, New England Patriots. 2 weeks ago, the Patriots were sitting at 7-6 and in the playoffs. After a disastrous loss in Las Vegas last week that we have all watched, talked about at length. This week, they took on the Bengals at home in a much-needed win in order to stay in the playoff race. After a god-awful first half, trailing 22-0 at halftime, the Patriots actually stormed back. They actually set themselves up with an opportunity to win this fucking game. Late in the game, Matt Judon, who was having an outstanding year, strips Jamar Chase of the ball, causing a fumble recovered by the Patriots. The Patriots are going to win this fucking game. However, on the 5-yard line, that's 15 feet away from the end zone. Remember Ramondre Stevenson? Yeah, that guy. He fumbled the ball away with 59 seconds left on the clock. Oh my God! The Patriots choke away yet another game, find themselves one game outside of a playoff spot. And this sets up an enormous game with the Dolphins this weekend, which I think they will win. I actually think that the Patriots get on track and sneak into the playoffs on a miraculous something. Number 20, New Orleans Saints. It was cold in Cleveland on Saturday. It was 7 degrees with a wind chill of -16. The Saints, a team who play indoors, were facing a very tall task. As we all know, the colder it gets in football, the more important the run game. And the Browns are well known for their run game. But the Saints came out with a game plan of being physical as fuck. And that proved to be the reason for this very excellent road win for the Saints. The Saints had less than 100 yards passing and less than 250 total yards in the game. That doesn't usually equate to a win, especially on the road. But that's what happened. And the Saints remain one game behind the Bucs for that NFC South lead. Number 19, Miami Dolphins. Remember back at the end of September when the Dolphins were the Super Bowl champions? Quarterback Tua Tugga turned the ball over is the perfect example of why box scores and stats are not important. When it comes to winning football games, take the stats, your passing yards, and throw them out the fucking window. You hear me, Dak Prescott's lovers? All season long, especially during their hot streak. Tua was dropping these short passes to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and watching them fucking run for 80 yards. And you know who gets rewarded for those yards along with the receiver? The fucking quarterback. And when you're throwing these little short passes over here, of course your completion percentage will be high. Look, I'm not back to hating on him, right? He's definitely way above the credit that I've always given him. I'm not saying he's bad, but he sure did look bad on Christmas Day, my boy threw some seriously terrible passes that led to some seriously terrible interceptions. And if you haven't seen the Jair Alexander interview after the game about one of the interceptions, it's absolutely classic. It's one of the funniest things I've ever freaking listened to. The Dolphins have been streaky all season long. They won 3 in a row. They lost 3 in a row. They won 5 in a row. They've now lost 4 in a row. You guys remember that Mike McDaniel t-shirt that says, "I wish it were colder"? Yeah, bro, you're 0-4 in December. The Dolphins find themselves at 8-7, clinging to a playoff spot. Their 2 final games are against the Patriots and Jets, 2 teams that are fighting really hard to get into those playoffs. It should be interesting, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the Dolphins might not make it. Number 18, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In a very painful game to watch, the Bucs squeak out an overtime win against the Cardinals, and they remain in first place in the AFC South. This team is not good. Down 10 points in the fourth quarter, Tom Brady, shocker, engineered a fourth quarter comeback to tie the game and send it to overtime. And in that overtime, Tom Brady looked like, well, the GOAT, led the Bucs into field goal range, and ultimately got the win against a very, very bad Cardinals team. Now, this coming weekend, the Bucs are taking on the Panthers in a win-and-in game. A win will clinch the NFC South for the Bucs, and then the matchup will be locked in. The Tampa Bay Bucs will host the Dallas Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs, and that will pretty much guarantee that the Bucs will move on in the playoffs. I'm such a tool. Number 17, Pittsburgh Steelers. Did anyone think that the Steelers were not going to come back and win this game against the Raiders? Celebrating the 50th anniversary of Franco Harris's immaculate reception, there was no way they were losing this game. This game was almost recreated from 50 years ago. Cold weather, low scoring. The Steelers were down 10-6 late in this game when they engineered a game-winning touchdown drive. On that final drive, I thought it was ironic, and it was pointed out by the commentator. They were reviewing a Najee Harris catch, a shoestring-type catch they had to review, which was funny because his last name is Harris, and it was a shoestring catch. No? Okay. This game seemed scripted, but the Steelers get the win nonetheless. They move to 7-8. Keep alive Mike Tomlin's winning season streak. Keep alive the playoff hopes, which I would really, really like the Steelers to sneak in. I really would. Over the Patriots, over the Jets, over the Dolphins. I would love to see this. This is what I'm rooting for. Number 16, Carolina Panthers. Boy, do the Panthers know how to run the ball. I've said it quite a few times before. I apologize for repeating myself. But how do you trade away Christian McCaffrey and then become a dominant running team? On Saturday, the Panthers stay alive in the NFC South race with a big-time win over a very hot Detroit Lions team, and they did so by setting the franchise record with over 320 yards rushing. Think about that. That's a lot of damn rushing yards. With the run game churning, Sam Darnold doesn't really have to do much. But he did. He made some timely passes, and he complemented that run game pretty nicely. He continues to make a case for himself. He wants to be the starter there next year. I look forward to this game between the Panthers and the Bucs this upcoming week. It's going to be fun. Number 15, Washington Commanders. So after the game last week, Ron Rivera announces that he's unsure how much longer he's going to stick with Taylor Heinicke because Carson Wentz is finally healthy. Subsequently, this leads to Heinicke being on a short leash. Heinicke, who is extremely competitive, I'm sure had that in the back of his mind. He took the field against the Niners on Saturday, and I'm sure he wasn't 100% focused because of this. That was a bad move, in my opinion. And as suspected, after the comments, once Heinicke had a couple bad passes, he was yanked from the game, and Carson Wentz came in. Now, I'm not saying that Heinicke didn't play bad. I'm not saying he didn't deserve to get benched, but I stand firmly in saying that the situation was handled incorrectly. Washington took the loss at the hands of one of the best teams in football, the Niners, and it appears that Wentz is going to be the starter moving forward. And because of that, I don't think Washington's going to make the playoffs. Number 14, New Jersey Jets. Chris Streveler? Yeah, that guy. He was in the starting lineup on Thursday night against the Jaguars. He was lined up as a wide receiver, and I believe that the Jets' game plan was to have some packages to where he's going to be able to throw the ball. They were just hoping to have some kind of spark because Zach Wilson is doo-doo. And after the first offensive drive of the game, when Zach Wilson was walking off the field, the boos started to rain down on him and the Jets that quickly. And from that point on, every incomplete pass, every time they were forced to punt, every time he got sacked, boo. Well deserved. Late in the third quarter, head coach Robert Saleh, collecting those receipts, finally decided to make the change. Zach Wilson, here's the bench. Chris Streveler, here you go. The volume of the crowd when Zach Wilson was benched was remarkable. That's got to be a really shitty feeling for Zach Wilson. In a game where the Jets desperately needed a win to stay in the playoff race, they scored 3 points. That's 4 losses in a row now for New Jersey. They're going to need to snap out of this funk if they are wanting to make the playoffs, but it has been reported that Mike White has been cleared to play, so that's obviously going to mean good things for the Jets. And for that reason and that reason alone, I'm saying the Jets sneak in the playoffs because of Mike White. Number 13, Detroit Lions. All right, after falling into an early hole on Saturday in Carolina, the Lions just couldn't climb their way out. That run defense just was not up to the task against a very good Panthers run game, and they ran for well over 300 yards. In the second half, the Lions finally got their offense working, but, it was too little too late. The Lions have been quite hot lately. They've been causing a stir in the NFC, looking to become the first team to ever make the playoffs after starting 1-6. With a Washington loss, the Lions could have moved into a playoff spot, but they missed out on a golden opportunity. Lions are really going to need to get back on track, chalk this up to one bad game if they want to make the playoffs. Number 12, Green Bay Packers. Packers found themselves down 20-10 at halftime in Miami against the Dolphins on Christmas Day. The Packers used a very, very lovely second half to come back and get a much-needed win, and they keep their playoff hopes very, very much alive. Packers didn't give a shit. They laid it all out on the line. They went for it on fourth down 5 fucking times. In the second half, their secondary had 3 straight takeaways. I mean, granted, they were off of terrible Tua passes. But losses from the Giants, the Lions, the Commanders, and the Seahawks helped the Packers immensely in the playoff race. I honestly think that they're going to sneak in. I do. Number 11, Jacksonville Jaguars. Thursday Night Football. Rainy, windy, New Jersey. Jaguars go out and get themselves a lovely win against the Jets. And finding out afterwards over the weekend when the Titans lose, the Jaguars move up into first place in the AFC South. This is fucking crazy. Going into their bye week, they were 3-7. They have since become one of the feel-good stories of the NFL this year. Clearly, they're in for a battle with the Titans over the next 2 weeks. But with Malik Willis under center for the Titans, I think the Jaguars have this. I think they've got it locked up. I'm here to tell you, if you are not a Jaguars fan or a Titans fan and you are impartial to both of these teams, I can't say I'm impartial because I hate the fucking Titans. I think everyone's rooting for the Jaguars because I think it's going to be more fun to watch the Jaguars in the playoffs than it would be with the Titans. Number 10, New Jersey Giants. So on Saturday, the Giants went into Minnesota to play a Vikings team, and they played them tough, let me tell you. And they lost on a last-second field goal. Daniel Jones played an excellent game. I don't care what anybody says. He was consistently under pressure, and he was taking a fucking beating. Now, it sucks that they lost this game because every win is important, obviously. But losing this game didn't really hurt them that much. The Lions, Commanders, and Seahawks all lost, so the Giants didn't lose any playoff ground. It seems likely that these two teams are going to meet again in the playoffs. And at least now the Giants know that they can hang with this team. Number 9, Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens beat the Falcons, winning 3 out of their last 4 games, all games in which they've scored 17 points or less. This past Saturday, they had less yards than the Falcons. They had less first downs than the Falcons. They turned the ball over on downs twice, and they kept settling for field goals. This is not a formula to win football games, but somehow they did it, and they continue to do it. The Ravens once again play a very ugly game, but do what needs to be done in order to get the dub. And all this is happening without Lamar Jackson, so it's all that more impressive. With this win, the Ravens clinch a playoff spot and eagerly await their franchise quarterback Lamar Jackson to return. Number 8, Los Angeles Chargers. Monday Night Football, Chargers get a dominant win over the Indianapolis Colts and clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2017. It wasn't the prettiest game. at all. But a combination of the Chargers being hot, Justin Herbert just finding Keenan Allen on almost every play, and the Colts just being a terrible, terrible football team, resulted in just what the Chargers needed. Looks like this team is getting hot at the right time. Number 7, Cincinnati Bengals. In the first half, against a very solid Patriots defense, the Bengals came out hot. 303 total yards to the Patriots 70. At halftime, they were up 22-0. And when the second half started, it almost seemed like the Bengals just had it on cruise control. Chill time. But then the Patriots started playing football. Touchdown Patriots. Touchdown Patriots. More points by the Patriots. Suddenly it's 22-18. The Bengals hold a 4-point lead. And suddenly late in the game, Jamar Chase gets the ball stripped from his hand, fumble, recovered by the Patriots in excellent field position. This is a concern for the Bengals. They don't seem to ever put a full game together. Fortunately, they keep getting wins, much like this one here, but they got lucky in this game. Stevenson fumbling the ball on the 5-yard line with less than a minute left, recovered by the Bengals, is the only reason why you won this game. There's some concerns in Cincinnati, there sure are. And they have a massive game coming up this week on Monday night when they welcome in the Buffalo Bills, which pretty much could very well be for that number 1 seed in the NFL, in the AFC. Number 6, Minnesota Vikings. Weird. The Vikings played a game in which it came down to the final possession. In fact, it came down to the final play. Again, they are now 11-0 in such situations. 1 possession, 1 score games, the Vikings are 11-0 this year. They only have 12 wins. This sets a new NFL record. Look, we all know that the Vikings offense goes through Justin Jefferson. But as each week passes, TJ Hawkinson, who got traded to the Vikings mid-season, is becoming more and more of a factor. Against the Giants, dude had 13 catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's more than just a little bit of a factor. The Vikings win, coupled with an Eagles loss, now sees them as 1 game behind the Eagles for that 1 seed in the NFC. Number 5, Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs just keep quietly winning games. They keep winning. They keep staying on pace with the Buffalo Bills for the 1 seed. Now, Mahomes, his stat line didn't look all that impressive if you look in the box score, but he was doing wonderful things on the field. But in this game against Seattle, it wasn't the Chiefs' offense that stole the show like they normally do. It was the defense, which is quite strange because their defense has not played well this year. They harassed Geno Smith all fucking game with pressure, sacking his ass, batting down punts, and just making big plays, forcing them to punt over and over again. Consistency on defense is going to be very important down the stretch. And if they can get that under control, this team is going to be fucking scary. Not that they aren't scary already, but you know what I mean. Number 4, Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so that elite Cowboys defense gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points to Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. But don't get it wrong. It was that Cowboys defense that won this game. Every time the Eagles would take a lead, the Cowboys would come back and tie the game. And how they were able to do that was takeaways by this Cowboys defense. They had 4 takeaways on the day. Being down in this game, being down 10 points multiple times in this game, forced the Cowboys to throw the ball most of the game. Dak finished the game with over 300 yards, the first time the Eagles have allowed that all season, but he probably should have had well over 400 yards if he wasn't a mediocre quarterback. Ultimately, the Cowboys get a very fucking nice, very big win over a 1-loss team, the team that they are chasing in their division, and they move 1 game closer to losing to Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs. I said what I said. Number 3, Philadelphia Eagles. So many things to unpack here. The Eagles head to Dallas to take on the Cowboys with a 13-1 record. It was announced earlier in the week that Jalen Hurts was hurt, will not play in this game, and backup Gardner Minshew would get the start. Now, before the game, you're thinking, if the Eagles win, are the comments about Hurts not being MVP caliber and he's surrounded by a great team, are those true? If the Eagles lose, can the Eagles blame the game on Hurts not playing because he is MVP caliber? The timing of this injury was absolutely detrimental. But at the same time, it was perfect because the first time these two teams played, Dak Prescott didn't play and they had their backup Cooper Rush in the game. Now the Eagles play with their backup. It would only be fitting and it would just be perfect if they meet again in the playoffs, Hurts versus Dak. Ultimately in this game, Minshew played well. It was a badass game. It was close. It was well played. It was entertaining. But the Eagles lose to the Cowboys. They give the Cowboys a hope that they could still win the division. And now we have to listen to Cowboys fans for the next couple of weeks. Thanks, Eagles. Number 2, Buffalo Bills. Are we still concerned with the Bills' run game? Is that still a point that people want to use as a weakness for the Buffalo Bills? 106 yards for Singletary plus a touchdown. 99 yards for James Cook plus a touchdown. Look, it was clear that the wind and the cold weather affected Josh Allen's ability to throw the ball in Chicago on Saturday. So insert the run game, and the Bills get a dominant win. Now, yes, the Bills were trailing 10-6 at halftime. It was bad. But in the second half, the Bills ran away with the game. Literally. The Bills' defense also came up just as large as they held Justin Fields, an explosive running back of over 1,000 yards rushing on the season, to just 11 rushing yards. With this win, the Buffalo Bills clinched the AFC East for the 3rd straight season. And for now, still hold that 1 seed in the AFC. Number 1, San Francisco 49ers. The Niners keep on rolling against Washington to win their 8th straight game. The Niners locked up the NFC West last week, but still went full throttle this week against the Commanders. Speaking of full throttle, is there an offensive line out there that can stop Nick Bosa? He absolutely has to be the odds-on favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year. Defensively, the Niners dominated this game, and in this game, they might have removed the Commanders from playoff contention. This team was once 3-4 this season. I was running my mouth about how inconsistent they are and how they are overhyped because they losing these bad games. Today, I have them at number 1 as the best team in the NFL. Today, they're the only team in the NFL, as a Bills fan, that I am afraid to play. I don't want any part of this fucking team. Give me the Eagles. Give me the Vikings. Give me the Cowboys. I don't want any part of this fucking Niners team. Fuck. All right, that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed. Another week down. 2 more weeks left to go. Eventually, I'm going to make a video where I go back and revisit my pre-season win totals. I have not watched that video since I posted it before the season started, so I'm very curious to know how I did. As always, if you haven't already, please click subscribe. I can never say that. It took me 45 fucking tries to actually say that, and I appreciate you all watching. Have a good one. We will see you next week.